And to round things out for North Carolina, I'm going to introduce Kelly Wells. She is a highway engineer with over 30 years of experience. She currently manages the traveler information and big traffic data programs for the North Carolina Department of Transportation. Kelly co-chairs the Eastern Transportation Coalition Travelers Information Program track. Kelly,
Okay.
welcome.
Can you hear me okay, Jeremy?
Sounds good.
All right, very good. Thanks. Next slide. So I'll pick up based on what you heard from Kurt. I'm going to share with you some of the things we did for after Hurricane Helene to provide traveler information for this widespread flooding that Kurt talked about. So I'll add what he said. It was Hurricane Helene is the costliest natural disaster in the history of our state. I've been doing this for 25 years. I've never seen anything like it. And to have it in the mountains as opposed to the coast just made it even more challenging. Next slide. So I do traveler information for the department, very different from what you all do, not technical at all. Just how do we get this information out to the public? Like I heard before from all the presenters, you know, we have these roads that are impassable. How do we make the public aware? So sort of the centerpiece of how we do this in North Carolina is through our website, which is drivenc.gov, very similar to the Texas example. One thing we have done, we have so many of these events, unfortunately, is on our day-to-day traveler information site, we have a unique pop out. When we have a big event, it automatically creates a pop out for us. You can click on that pop out and it only gives you information related to the storm. So it's not mixed in with maintenance and construction and all those things. We also do a big red banner at the top of our screen and we allow people to see the count of the numbers of roads that are closed. Next slide. So this is the front end of our system. The back end of our system we call TIMS. Kurt alluded to that. And what it is basically just an online database where we have about 600 county maintenance engineers, resident engineers, and our traffic management center. They can enter information online in real time. And like one of the presenters had said, you know, we don't know what's happening as we sit in Raleigh. We can't see everything on a traffic camera. So we have reached out to our field forces and said, hey, when you know something has impacted travel, go ahead and put it into the system. And that's what they've been doing. It was born out of Hurricane Floyd in 2000 when we had 1,500 roads closed. The worst storm we've had in terms of numbers of roads that are closed is Florence back in 2018. And here in Helene, we had 1,500. But I'll make one general statement. When the flooding is this bad, you know you don't catch everything, right? Some roads flooded and then cleared before we even knew it, before we even got anyone out there. Another challenge I'll mention from these storms was massive loss of power, massive loss of communications. The folks that we count on were dealing with their families and their homes and their property being destroyed. So I don't believe 1,500 is even close to the number of roads that was actually closed. Next slide. And you can skip the next slide, I believe, in the end. Okay, nope, stay there. This is the important one, sorry. And so as Kurt talked about, we have in the recent years started to use this tool of Bridge Watch to help inform knowing when those roads and where they're actually closed. So there's one of the gauges on the left, and we have an API that feeds directly into our TIM system. So our traffic management center operators are constantly looking at incoming information. And I'll give you an example for this first row. There's a report from Bridgewatch that says that in Division 9 in Forsyth County, Blanket Creek Road is closed or has water at low court on the bridge. So what our operator would do is they would see this alert, they would pick up the phone, call the maintenance engineer in Forsyth County and say, hey, we see this report. Can you verify that Blanket Creek should in fact be closed? They go out, they verify, and then we put it into our traveler information tools. My new favorite term for all of this is human in the loop, right? Most of the technology we use in traffic management isn't quite good enough to just let computer talk to computer. So we have that human in the loop, kind of keeping an eye on things, looking for false alarms and verifying what's happening. Next slide. This one you can skip. Next slide. So some tools I just wanted to share with you that we've used to provide information first internally to our management is something we call our road closure report. And this has become a really go-to for different agencies and state government. One of the problems we had a few storms ago was that if someone asked the highway patrol, they would give one answer. If someone asked emergency management, they would give a different answer. So we've worked very hard in the last 15 years to work with our other agencies. I even go out before hurricane season and before snow season, and I meet with the communications officers in those other agencies. And if they've changed, I bring them up to speed on our tools. If they haven't changed, I show them some new features of the tools, but I keep reinforcing the message. This is the official source of what roads are closed and what roads are open. Please don't try to answer. Please just keep directing the media to us. So that's worked really well over the last decade or so. We had a lot of questions to answer when those numbers didn't line up. So now we've become the definitive source. And one thing we produce is this road closure report. So it's simply a Excel spreadsheet, right? The people enter things in our website, it populates this Excel spreadsheet, and then it creates a pivot table. And we can simply list by division, you probably have districts, we have divisions, and then by road category, how many roads are closed at a given time. So we produce this manually during Matthew in 2016, and it took a lot of time. There were a lot of questions. So we have a data scientist on our team, Nathan Webster, and he has automated this process. So now these are sent out automatically and anyone can subscribe. You know, maybe the secretary wants this every 2 hours, but the chief engineer wants it every 1 hour. So they can go in and subscribe, and then this report is pushed to them on that frequency, and they're able to click. When they actually click on the link in their email, it takes them to the current report at real time. So every storm, we've just improved these tools, but this is one that we rely on a lot. Next slide. So that's a push model. I'm kind of a pull person. I like to pull the information I need. So we have an internal dashboard that has that same exact information. You can slice it and dice it in terms that DOT cares about for situational awareness for all of our divisions. So that's a tool we do for every storm. Next slide. And now we'll shift a little bit to the public and how we make the public aware. Well, we've used all the tools. We use our website, and we have a 511 phone system and all those good things. But what's interesting is when you have a big storm like this, things change from the storm impacting the road. This was probably maybe 2 or 3 weeks after Helene, maybe 2. The storm impacts the roads, and people want to know what road is closed, what road is closed. But then when things sort of stabilize, the question becomes, well, which roads have reopened, and what is DOT doing to get the roads reopened? So that's where this dashboard was born. It's actually called the Reopening Dashboard, and we still have it up and running today. And if you start from the right, the metrics that we're reporting to the public are how many roads have been opened in the last week, how many are still closed to truck traffic, how many have partial access, how many are still currently closed, and how many have we fully opened since the storm started. So we've never done this before, a reopening dashboard, but it really does help tell the story of, hey, we're working on it and we're trying to make things better. Next slide. We do provide our information from our traveler information system to the navigation app. Someone before was talking about that. So we've worked really hard on this over the last 10 or so years. And so this is just an example of how you would see our specific closures shown up in Waze and Google and Apple Maps. So we do this all the time. We do this day to day. We do it in emergencies. This is pretty bread and butter for us. Next slide. But something we did differently. We did it in Florence, as Kurt mentioned, and we haven't done it again. And I was actually not a big fan of this when we did it in Florence, but we did it better in this storm in Helene. And so what we did, we called it a pink blob. Someone put on my slide pink zone because I think they think pink blob sounded too whatever, but we call them the pink blobs. And what we did is we recognized that there were parts of the state that we could not uniquely identify all the roads that were closed. We knew that were roads that were closed that we couldn't, call out specifically. So we just created this pink blob. We based it on talking to people in the field. We based it on all the resources we had, and our GIS folks sat in our war room with us during the storm, and they created this pink blob or polygon. And so we got it up pretty quickly after the storm, and it progressed. You can see on the right, the legend actually said, "Do not travel," and that was kind of our overarching message: do not travel in any of these counties. But it was interesting because as things went on, tourism is really the big industry in this part of the state. So as the storm cleared and roads opened and areas recovered, they wanted tourism to come back. So it became quite a arduous process to refine that pink blob, both in terms of where it covered and then what message we gave. So you can see at the far right, we wound up saying essential travel only, but it went through many iterations between do not travel and essential travel. Next slide. So the cool thing about this pink blob is that not only do we show it on our website, it was all over social media from people in Western North Carolina, but what it allowed us to do is to also have messages pushed on Google Maps, Apple Maps, and on Waze. And so we gave we reached out to these navigation apps and said, this is really bad. How can you help us? What can we do to get the word out to travelers? And so each one of them worked with us and they used the pink blob. And as the pink blob changed on our website, I would send it to all the navigation providers, okay, update to the pink blob. And then we would give them our messaging and they would take that messaging and they would turn it into the kinds of alerts that you see here. So when someone would try to route into or through the affected area, not only would it not route them to a road that was closed, but it would give them warnings. So people knew where they were going as they tried to navigate. And for my last slide, next slide. The other thing we did that we had never done before was we issued wireless emergency alerts, which is not that uncommon. We do them from time to time. We have only done them before for trapped queues. But in this case, we felt like the flooding was so bad and people were continuing to drive west as the storm was raging. And so we actually issued wireless emergency alerts, as you heard Kurt talk about kind of the crossroads of the state. We issued an alert that said, hey, don't go past this point. The roads are closed in Western North Carolina. You just don't even need to go any further west. So this was a really innovative for us. This was unheard of, using sending it to moving traffic and giving these kinds of alerts. But we felt, desperate times call for desperate measures. And these are some of the tools that we used for this storm that we hadn't used for prior flooding. And that's all I have, Jeremy.